Love and light. So we got asked to explain suicide and what that means and what the implications of suicide are. Before I say anything, I would like to stress that there can't be any rules about this stuff. It is individual. For instance, if any of you have ever heard the channel Indigo Angel, her awakening was initiated by a suicide, by a serious suicide attempt, and actually, I think she carried it out. I believe she died. She believes she died, and look what that led to, So the act itself, like the actual action of killing oneself, is not what's important. Doesn't matter how that's carried out. Doesn't matter any of those external circumstances at the time. What's important is the motivation, is the intent. So for instance, it would not be the same at all if one were to kill themselves to escape a prison or a trap or torture, or out of fear perhaps of something worse, or coercion, or so it's not the act of actually taking one's life, because that would only free one from that situation. Maybe were other higher, like higher spiritual technologies which could have freed that one from the situation without the suicide, but that person or individual may not have had access to those abilities or knew they did at that time. And so suicide, in fact, may have been a viable option as opposed to whatever the other situation was. So it's not like the Catholic Church makes it like there's a curse or a rule that God has about suicide. However, they're not completely wrong in saying that this is a sacred vehicle, a sacred expression, and the desecration and murder of it is not a small thing. So definitely the intent and the reasons for all that are going to be heavily considered. But in most situations where suicide happens, we have a deep self-loathing. We have a deep self-hatred, a disconnection from the heart, a disconnection from love. And those are what's important. Those are what's important in suicide, because that can lead one into all sorts of lower astral realms, bardo situations, and reincarnations, into lives that may not be incredibly desirable. Like there are definitely karmic results to that. However, it's not a punishment. There are no punishments. It is simply what that soul or soul fragment or personality, however we want to see it, needs to heal. It's just their path. I mean, I went down a very dark road myself, going into prison and all that, and I certainly thought about suicide quite a bit, and I would have done it, honestly, if it wasn't for my higher self coming in and stopping me at a few key moments. So luckily I was able to get those messages, but some people don't. Some people don't get the messages, they don't accept the messages, there's just a little bit more programming in the way, and so that's what results. Now, from the higher self's perspective, the higher self doesn't have to allow anything to stand that it doesn't want. It exists outside of time. So if the personality killed itself, and the higher self saw that not as beneficial, that situation would be reversed, no doubt. And there is another person, I don't know his name, but I listened to his story, he's on YouTube, had several near-death experiences, and he was talking about, it was very interesting, he almost killed himself as a child in this life with a gun, and actually had dreams about him killing himself, and heard the guns go off repeatedly. And finally, later on, when he was able to get some deeper communications on this issue, it turns out he had killed himself multiple times in this life, and the higher self kept resetting him. So it's not like a mortal sin where you'll be cast into any. There is none of that. There's no lake of fire to be cast into in judgment. There are realms that are hellish and terrible, and one puts themselves in there through their own confusion, and no different than one puts themselves into a situation of horror here on earth. And though it appears that some people are born into those situations unjustly, that is only because we cannot see the total picture. We cannot see the karma. We cannot see the past. We cannot see the reasons they made those decisions. And it may not even be karma. It may be that they came to help. You know, they may be a more advanced soul, an ascendant soul coming to help a dark situation. So, I hope that helps. Nothing more.